Hi there. Welcome to the seminar. My name is Dominic Tolero. I'm Director of Industry Solutions for IBIS Inc. And today the topic is going to be moving to Omni Channel Sales, or also known as multi-channel sales. I usually like to start all of my webinars, seminars, and presentations just going over a basically definition of what we're going to be talking about. Basically, omni-channels is a seamless approach to consumer experience using all available shopping channels. Now, this is a definition that I pulled right out of the system that I use for finding this type of information. But the thing that I feel is missing here is for a pleasant customer experience, because if the customer experience is not pleasant, is not positive, they will not be coming back to whatever channel that they used in order to make their acquisitions from you. So I like to add the word pleasant to it to make sure that everybody agrees that this is something that is repeatable and is going to actually add value to your customers and generate margin for you, of course. So on the next slide, we're going to start talking about channels, the various omni-channel systems you can use. On the e-commerce side, depending on which side of the equation you're on, there's the B2B, business to business, as well as the B2C, business to consumers. The look, the feel, the expectations are going to be very different from one to the other. So as you build your omni-channel capabilities, especially as e-commerce is concerned, you're going to have to make sure that you are preparing, creating, and presenting a pleasant experience, but also an experience that delivers value depending on who you're going after. If you're going to a B2B site, you expect to have a lot of services, a lot of technical information on the product you're using, and so forth and so on. If you're going to a B2C, you expect beautiful pictures, you expect, the selling experience is different. Therefore, your e-commerce site has to reflect who you're going after with what product it is. Because we're talking about omni-channels, of course, you've got your telephone CSR ordering, client service rep. Well, in that case, there's no visuals, of course, but you've got to have a pleasant experience there as well. EDI, there is no person, no human interaction, there's no pictures, there's just a system-generated message that goes from one system to the next, and basically there, the pleasantness of the experience is making sure it works the first time and it's accepted right away rather than having to go back and forth in order to make it happen. Fax is a little bit different in that it's a human that's typing it at one end and it's a human that's receiving it at the other end. So basically the information that goes across has to be correct. The pleasantness of the experience there, again, is making sure that when it gets there, it's correct so that when they type in the order, they don't have to come back to you and try to find out more information. So as you look at all of these, you have to start planning your experience to the customer and creating your omni-channel experiences accordingly. If we look at the next slide, we're looking at the steps. Okay, now that I've decided that I'm going to go to market with all of these various channels, well, first off, what do I need as far as technology is concerned? I need to have the proper technology to make these things happen. If you've got customers that are coming in by fax, should you consider a fax server perhaps in order to make things a little bit faster? Or is it going to be a human that's going to be responsible for fax orders? So what you're looking at there is setting up the proper infrastructure to receive what it is that's going to be coming through the channels. The other part of the infrastructure is having the system is one thing. Having the software that goes along with it is a different story. Like I said, a fax server, yeah, you require hardware, but you also require the software that goes along with it. EDI then deciding which forms of EDI you're going to accept. Is it going to be an 820, whatever it is that you decide that you're going to accept within your company has to be defined in there, and you have to have the proper system. And then if you're going to confirm back to them, how are you going to send it back, and is it going to be automated, is it going to be human intervention, and so forth and so on. ERP, ERP plays a big role in omni-channels because if you want to receive an order and execute it ASAP, well, guess what? You got to have the right information in the system that it's going to connect with. It could be pricing, it could be order management rules, it could be inventory rules that you have set up and so forth, which the system has to recognize. If not, you've got human intervention again that's going to kick in and will slow down the actual functioning and information flow and can affect the way the customer sees the experience, and not always positive, obviously, because if it's being delayed, it doesn't make them happy. Collaboration. You got to be able to get information upstream and downstream. You also got to be able to send information upstream and downstream. So you got to have a system, both infrastructure-wise, hardware, as well as software, that can interface and interact with these systems seamlessly, can work with them, can forward the information, can confirm, can have workflow. There's so much that you can attach to that in order to get sure that that information gets across. Okay? And last, of course, is what I'm just talking about it right now, is information. The information is not just what you send back and forth. The information, and as far as collaboration, the information also refers to making sure that what goes back and forth is the latest and greatest. So we go back to the ERP. Do I have the right pricing? Do I have the right price points? Do I have the right trade agreements in place? Do I have the right SPAs? Is my inventory up to date? In other words, do I have the right information in there so that if I say I accepted the order and shipping tomorrow, I don't show up, my perpetual inventory is up to date with my physical inventory, so there's no surprises when the time comes to ship. Anything that affects that kind of automated information flow requiring human intervention is going to affect the customer experience. And if the customer experience is not totally pleasant, then they're going to look at somewhere else to go get that pleasant customer experience. We continue with some slides, with some steps here, talking about collaboration, visibility into all types of demands and supply required to meet the customer demands that are coming in. So do you have to forecast? Absolutely, because you want to make sure that the items you're forecasting are right. How do you get the supply? Well, based on the forecast, you got to make sure you got the right amount in there, and that you're covering that amount so that if you say that delivery is within 24 hours, you can meet that delivery. How do you get that delivery done? How do you meet those commitments that you've made? Could be drop ship, could be sourcing that you have, special sourcing for certain items, could be through vendor managed inventory in some areas where it could be, you have inventory sitting somewhere from your vendors, and they're managing it, and you're just shipping in and out of there, giving orders to ship in and out of there. In other words, a 3PL perhaps, or multiple 3PLs, depending on where you have your customers' concentration, as well as consignment inventory. You may actually have inventory sitting at your various customers, and although that the order might come in through you through a portal instead of through a e-commerce web system that's set up. So it could be a portal where they just go into your system, release the order, and the PO gets created automatically. The items are there. You know what the new inventory is. You have min-maxes perhaps in place. You know it's time to go replenish. I talked about pricing. Well, that's really the one that tends to surprise a lot of people, is if you're going to have a system in place that's supposed to be automated and that's supposed to be online real-time with real-time feedbacks and updates, well, pricing is one of the first things that has to be right. Because if I have trade agreements in place and the customer is ordering through a variety of channels, in other words, is using all of the channels that we were talking about originally, then what you have is you have a major issue if you don't have visibility into all the pricing agreements available at the system's fingertips. So if I come in and I'm placing an order today, and one of my people is going to place it through a web portal, is they're going to go into e-commerce and they're going to buy something, they got to see the same price based on whatever agreement is in place as the person who calls in and talks to a human, as the person who sends in an EDI order, as the person who sends in a fax order. It really doesn't matter where the orders are coming from. If it's the same customer, and if it's for an item that you have an agreement with, then those prices have to reflect that regardless of the channels that they're using to place the orders. That is extremely important, and a lot of companies tend to forget that. We meet with many companies who say they have Omni Channel Sales capabilities, and then when you sit down and you start talking to them and say, well, how do you manage your e-commerce orders? Well, when they come in, they automatically go to so-and-so's department, they sit down, they review for inventory, they review for pricing, they review blah, blah, blah. We make whatever adjustments have to be done, and then we confirm it back. That kind of defeats the purpose of getting an order in through an automated system, because an automated system should have all that information on hand. Place an order with Amazon, they're not going to take 2 hours, 15 minutes, 1 minute to get back to you. Their checks are quick. They know their inventory. They know their prices. You get it, period. If you order using one of the Amazon preferred membership, well, they know you're going to get a discount. They're not going to get the order, then go double check it, then get back to you. They know that immediately. As soon as you put it in, their system is aware of that, and they'll take advantage of it, and they'll use it, and you'll have the right prices. So it's extremely important that you plan to make sure that all of this information is made available in a way that doesn't require that time be wasted. Always extremely important. And, a transparent and integrated approach that allows you to manage your customers in an automated fashion and an instantaneous process that does not require human review with follow-up, corrections, and delayed order approvals. That's extremely important. Again, anything that's automated, EDI, web ordering, portal ordering, that has to be immediate. If you can do that immediately on the automated sides, guess what? It's done immediately on the human side as well, because they're using the same system. We're back again to making sure that we have the same system, we use the same system, and we transfer the same information. On the next slide, we talk about customer expectations. Well, customer wants everything, so we all know that. But some of the more important basic things that you've got to plan for is it's got to be immediate, and it's got to be a correct order processing experience. Fast and right the first time. They don't want you calling them back to make any kind of changes or inquiries or whatever. They looked at your system. If the system is set up properly, it says this is the price, which is the right price. The item, we've already identified that. There's been a logic test that took place. Based on the quantity, effectivity dates, this is the price based on the agreements we had. And the system keeps track of that for them as well as for you. It's got to be a channel agnostic process. In other words, if it works on the web, it's got to work on a portal, it's got to work with a CSR, it's got to work with EDI, and it's got to work with fax. It can't be something that I apply it to this, but I don't apply it to that. Because again, customers will use all of these various ways of ordering, and you want to make sure that the same service is being made available at all levels. It definitely and absolutely has to be a simple, integrated process, again, regardless of the method. I've tried to order some items every once in a while, for whatever it is that I need. And I'll use an example for my motorcycle. There's about 7 or 8 different sites that I look at all the time, but in the end I always end up ordering from one site because it's simple. I'm not asking questions, it comes back to me, it's got all the information, it's instantaneous, it tells me when it's going to be delivered, because it's coming UPS, it adds so many more days to it, it sends me an email when it's done with a tracking number, it's complete, it's got everything, it's simple. And in some items, honestly speaking, I will pay a little bit more in order to make sure that I've got that kind of capability and information at my fingertips. Okay? Visibility. You got to have total visibility. You got to be able to show them the item with technical information, as well as the price, as well as the quantities that are available, as well as how quickly you're going to ship, how it's going to be shipped, the various modes they could pick and choose from, and the prices get adjusted accordingly. All the information, as well as the possibility of talking to someone or emailing with someone if a question arises. And sometimes that could, based on the order they're trying to place, there could be questions that pop up. So you've got to have the availability to exchange information back and forth as well. And lastly, right here at the end, but not least important, obviously, is it's got to be fast. Nobody wants to spend a lot of time placing an order unless you're configuring an airplane or something. But if you're ordering erasers, if you're ordering, even laptops in a lot of cases, you want to do that quickly, you want to do it fast, and you want to do it efficiently. So those are points that you need to remember as far as setting up the customer expectation. The other part that's extremely important for all of that is the transparency for the pricing process. Do you have a single pricing process policy in place? In other words, I don't care how you order, that's the price. Or do you have multi-pricing policies? Well, if you order through the web, because I don't have to have a person pick up the phone, nobody gets involved, it's all automated, you get a discount. If you order by calling somebody, well then, If you order by calling somebody, you don't get that discount. If you send an EDI, you get the same discount, more or less, depending on how you decide, as if it came in through the web. So these are, first of all, it's extremely important that if you have any of these, the customer be made aware of it. So you may have that on your website, or it's an agreement that you have in place with them that you've signed off on. In which case we go right back again to making sure that you have the right prices based on how they order. Okay? So it's got to be transparent in order to meet those customer expectations as well. If we go on to the next slide, we're going to see that the importance of one set of rules that applies across all order entry methods. So what do I mean by one set of rules? You got to deliver consistent application of agreements across order methods. Like I said earlier, if you're going to give a discount for one type of ordering and you're not going to give it for the other, it's got to be consistent, because if the guy decides to start calling and still wants the same discount as you had committed to him if he does it electronically, then you're defeating the purpose, because your margins are being affected and you're not getting the efficiencies that you were looking for. And if you don't tell him he can't do it that way, he'll continue doing it that way. So it's important that you apply all of these agreements and that they be done consistently. Another set of very important rules is you have to avoid human interventions and errors. If you're going to have electronic ordering, and for each order, or for even a 10-15% of the orders coming in, depending on your volume, somebody has to get involved to push that order through, to make it happen, to make sure that it's consistent as it goes through the system, and that your customer is getting exactly what they're looking for. Then again, you've got a problem, because you're defeating the purpose of all that. And what you're doing is you're also potentially creating a negative customer experience, because they expect the order is placed. They may even show it in their demand planning, supply planning side, and all of a sudden they get a phone call going, well, no, we're not going to ship today because we have a couple of questions. That may cause some problems that may lead to that customer not calling you again for parts. So you got to make sure you've got that under control, planned properly, and available for everyone to avoid those human interventions. Now, believe it or not, that applies to a client calling into your call center as well, because the only human intervention they want at that point in time is to talk to somebody who's going to take the order. Once they hang up, their expectations is that order has been placed. If again somebody has to get back to them on anything, then that order is not placed, and that creates an issue as well on both sides. So it's important that you have that to make sure that it works properly. And of course, one set of numbers for processing and management review. All of that information needs to be tracked. All the results need to be tracked. If orders are coming in through multiple channels, then when I look at a sales report, the sales report has to include all of those orders. I don't want to look at a sales report that's strictly for web orders, and I don't want to look at a sales report that's strictly for EDI orders. I also don't want to look at a sales report that mixes and matches them all together, so I don't know, where the majority of my orders are coming from and how I need to potentially adjust my message and my delivery to my customers based on the way I'm set up. So one set of numbers for processing and management review to turn around and better deliver, and of course, again, back to the customer experience, make sure that we deliver a positive customer experience, not a negative customer experience. On the next slide, we're looking at channel pricing cannibalism. Different prices for same products based on ordering methods. I spoke earlier about giving a discount to people who order on the web. Well, that could cause for orders to drop in other methods. The issue there is not necessarily that it's negative. The issue there is that you may not have clearly thought that through. Are you ready for all those orders to come in through e-commerce, through your website? Is your website ready for all those orders? Is your website capable of taking orders for all of your product lines? Or do you want only certain orders to come in through the website and so forth? So really what you need to do is you need to clearly think that through. And a lot of firms will plan on driving sales between channels by creating different price differentials. And that's fine and dandy if you've planned for it and you're ready for it. But if you're not, the law of unintended consequences is going to pop in. And you're going to discover all of a sudden that you may have created a monster that's going to take a while for you to recoup from. Again, like I said, customers are not very forgiving. If you're selling a product that multiple other distributors out there are selling, and you're causing them an issue, and you can't get the product out, they're not going to be very understanding. They're just going to turn around and go somewhere else. It's really that simple. So when you plan on all these things, please make sure that you're ready to handle it, that you can deal with it, and that you've got everything in place to work on it. And an example I have here is, like I was saying, e-commerce orders. Can the system manage the additional load? Not all systems are set up to manage huge amount of orders being placed through the web, through your web system, through your e-commerce. So you've got to make sure that it can handle thousands of orders a day. If you were only planning on getting a certain number and it's tripled, it's going to start crashing. You're going to start having problems. It's going to affect everything in sight. It's also going to have problems internally because you're going to have people who are not working as much, perhaps. It can also create issues in that they place the order on the website and then they call in for information because the website was not set up for all of that. So there's a lot of stuff that can happen. Is your pricing system capable of handling the price differential, or do you need human interventions? In other words, it was limited to certain items, to certain customers. Now they're using it for all, but they want to apply the same discounts they had. Is your system capable of doing that? Is your system capable of reflecting that? Or was it built, again, on a limited capability? And are additional discounted orders going to negatively affect your margins? Everything goes back to margins, folks. You've got to make the numbers. You've got to plan in order to make those numbers. You got to have the systems in place in order to make those numbers. If you're going to start playing around with testing things and not thinking it all the way through, cannibalism will jump in so many different ways, and cannibalism can be just eating away at your margins, which is not acceptable. You just can't have that happen. One of my last slides here, which is the next slide, is basically, I'm just giving an example of a true order to cash for omni-channel processes. Again, the order does not start when you receive the order. As you think about setting this up, and if anybody participated in one of my previous webinars, really the order to cash process starts at the planning stage. It starts at the stage where you start thinking about, how do I do all this? What are the unintended consequences that may happen? How do I set up my pricing? What are the agreements I want to have in place? Which do I want to come through e-commerce? Which do I want to come through EDI? Which do I want to come through my CSRs? Once you've got that set up, then the order management side of it is the same for all, because it's being managed by one system and it's being managed exactly as you had it planned. So what you end up is an order system that can automatically approve because it checked the price, it checked the method that it was being ordered with, it checked the dollars, it checked the quantities, it checked the effectivities. Everything's fine. I have inventory because it's all up to date with my perpetual. We can ship. It's within the lead times. We can get it out the door. All of that has been checked. It's been done automatically. We don't have to have humans involved. Okay, so you go forward, you get the whole thing done. You can then easily invoice based on the terms that you have in place. But the beauty of it is that regardless of which channel you're going to use, you still need to realize your margins, and your margins are not realized at customer invoice payments. Your margins are realized once you get the vendor payments as well, the vendor support dollars. Again, if it's being done manually, you might have a way of tracking it. If it's being done by EDI, you might have a different way of tracking. If it's being done by web orders, you have a different way of tracking it. That just adds dollars. It just adds volumes of work. One system, one approach, one solution. That's the way you got to be able to do that. And then, of course, like I said, you've got the analytics that you've got to get with it, and be able to analyze where the orders are coming from, who's sending them in, what type of orders you're getting, so you can adjust your resources, and always going back to the margins, because depending on what you do in order to adjust it, then that'll affect your margins, and you got to be ready to be able to handle that. On my last slide here, basically, it's just a quick summary of what it is that we've been talking about. So if it all goes back to customer experience, well, it's got to be seamless. It really doesn't matter to them how they're placing the order. They're placing the order in the method that they agreed to, in the easiest method they agreed to, and in the fastest method they agreed to. And guess what? Regardless of which one they use, they expect to get exactly what it is they ordered, when they ordered it, at the price that they expected to order. It's got to be seamless for them, whichever way they're going to go. Painless. Like I said, I might look at 8 or 9 different websites, but in the end, I always tend to go back to one, because that's the one that's the least painless for me. It works fine with the ways I like to do things. It has the information that I'm looking for. It provides me with the updates and all the latest items that I need in order to feel comfortable that I'm getting it. And it's got expertise on the site. They are obviously looking for my type of customers. They've done a good job. If the other guys are looking for my type of customers, they've done a terrible job, because they never get my order, even though they got the same parts. So it's extremely important to think about how easy it's going to be. It's got to be flawless. If I order an item, again, that's the item I expect. If I use a credit card, I expect to use that credit card, not somebody else's credit card. If I say ship it UPS, I expect it to be shipped UPS, not USPS, but charged UPS, that kind of stuff. Automated, it's nice to have the system be able to do whatever calculations are required, whatever updates are required. The system says that, within 24 hours, when it's shipped, I'll receive an update with a way bill so that I can actually track it. Guess what? I get it. And it's automated. It's not a human that's actually sitting down in the background and creating all of that as they're going through it, because they've got automated systems internally that when it's picked, packed, and shipped, that updates the main system. The main system turns around and sends out the information I need, showing me that it's on the go. Accurate. I've got to know that it's coming in at the right time, it's built for the right amount, it's the right product. A lot of these overlap, obviously. Painless can overlap with accurate. Flawless can overlap with automated, and so forth and so on. But the point is that any one of these on its own is a problem if you can't meet these requirements. And last is it's got to be executed based on whatever existing agreements you have. You cannot be successful setting up omni-channel sales processes and procedures if you don't honor the agreements that you have in place with all of these prospects, with all of these customers. It's got to be transparent. It's got to be in the system. If at any point you don't execute on one of the agreements, then you've just hit all of the points above in a negative fashion. It's not seamless anymore. It's not painless anymore. It's not flawless anymore. It's definitely not automated. And of course, it's not accurate. So with one quick stroke, you've just ruined everything that you'd set up. So it's extremely important to make sure that you've got this covered in every single way. So when you build your plan, put these points down. And based on these points, what do you need to do to make it happen? As you build that, put prices next, put a cost next to it, put resources, put technology requirements, put software requirements. By technology, I mean both hardware and software, and start building what the cost will be. Once you've got that all figured out, then you can turn around and look at, well, given this cost, what's going to be my ROI as I set this up? And is my margin going to be enough to manage it, make sure that it works? Is my margin going to be enough for me to be successful as I roll this out? Do I have enough margin, to handle the hiccups? Because there's going to be hiccups. There's no two ways about it. But you've got to have a plan in place, and that plan has got to cover these points. And for each of these points, you got to know how you're going to meet those points. And as you go through it, you'll notice that seamless basically requires the same capabilities as painless, as flawless, Automated is going to be a little bit different, because now you're looking at, well, I have all these agreements. How do I automate all those agreements? How do I get that information across? As you do that, you look at what you have, create a gap document, and based on that gap, you'll know what the cost is going to be for you to go out and do it. And once you've got the cost, you can look at your margins, you can look at the market that's out there, you can look at your resources, and you can then decide which part of the omni-channel sales process you can start with. Don't ever try to do them all at once, because it's going to be very painful. I hate to use the term phase, but usually phasing it in is a good way of doing it. And as you phase it in, start with the simpler ones. Make sure that the simpler ones are a base for the next level. Work on the next level, which is built on the simpler one, and you've got a base for the next one. By the time you get to the most complicated one, you've got it all figured out because you've tested it as you went along.